Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be doing an unhaul video, and I haven't done an unhaul video in a really long time, and it always feels like I do them. And then I looked up my videos and it had been 6 months since I've done an unhaul video. And as you guys know, I love unhauling. Like, I love cleaning off my shelves. I love keeping my shelves very curated, and I don't love keeping things around that I don't love. And one thing that I struggle with is the letting go process of some of these books, but once the books are gone, I literally never think about them again. Like, it's one of those things where you just have to get past the letting go phase, and then that's the hardest part. Hopefully I can do that with some of these, because there are a couple of books on this list that I was like holding on to for dear life. I don't know why, but it's like so hard to let go of them. But I know once they're out of my hands and off of my shelf, I'm literally not going to think about them again. So I don't know why it's so hard for me to let them go. So with that said, it takes me to my first two books that I have been holding on to for dear life. But it is Serpent and Dove, right here, beautiful, and then Blood and Honey. So I have not read Gods and Monsters, and you guys know that I really liked Serpent and Dove. I gave this 5 stars. It was probably about a 4.5 if I'm being honest, but I gave this 5 stars when I first read it, and then I gave this one 2 stars. I hated this book. I think I vlogged it on my last book channel, and I had so many thoughts about this book and I just did not like it at all, and so I never read the last book. Why do I keep these books around when I hated this book so much? And I think it is because I love these covers. I especially love this red one. I just love the color, and there's just something about like the tabs, and they're just hardback, but I think it's time. Like, I know I'm not going to read them again. I know I'm not going to finish the series. So I think it's finally time for me to say goodbye to these books. I will probably give them to my bookstore that buys books, and then you get like credit and stuff. So the next 2 books are 2 books that I read, and I just don't ever see myself reading them again. And they are All Your Perfects by Colleen Hoover, and then also Regretting You by Colleen Hoover. And oh, and then I also have November 9. So I don't hate Colleen Hoover viscerally, like I feel like 99% of BookTube does for some reason. She's fine. She's not that horrible of an author. Like, I don't understand why everyone hates her so much. It's like a trend or something. I don't know. I think she's fine if you want just like a palate cleanser read. You want something easy and just like to the point. I'm going to try to give these to the bookstore again that buys books, but if she doesn't take them, I have a feeling she will though, because Colleen Hoover is so freaking popular. I'm pretty sure she could buy, or she could sell these really fast. But if she doesn't take them, I'm just gonna put them in a little free library. I think like a lot of first time readers read a lot of Colleen Hoover, so I think I'm just gonna put them there if she doesn't take them. I mean, I think November 9, as entertaining as it was also kind of cringy at times, and there was definitely some like problematic elements in it, but like, calm down. Next up is The Perfect Couple. So I bought this actually fairly recently at a thrift store, and I actually was kind of excited to try her for the first time, but I just found out that they created a series or a movie, one of the two, based on this book, and I'm like, I'm the kind of person, like I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, I need to read the book first before I watch the movie. I am not that type of person. If there's a movie out of a book, I'd rather just watch the movie. And I know that's very unpopular, but I just feel like there's so many books that I want to read that are not made into shows yet. So if they're made into shows, I can just watch it and then read a million other books that I really want to read too, right? It's just getting more like media into my brain, into my eyes, whatever. And this is one of those books where I'll watch the movie and I'm fine with it. Next up is The One and Only Ivan. So this was actually a really cute story on how I got this book. So I was at Goodwill, and I was looking at the books for kids for Elena and Emery, and I was looking at this one, and this little girl came up to me. She was probably like 10, and she goes, "You need to get that book." And I was like, "Really?" And she goes, "Yes, you'll love it. That's like one of my favorite books." And she was telling me all about it. She was like 10 years old, and it was adorable because she was like selling me on this book. And I was like, okay, I'll buy it. So I figured like Emery or something would want to read this, but I brought it home and both of the girls had read it at school. They didn't want to read it again. So I was really sad about that though, because the girl was like dead set on me buying this book, and so I had to buy it. The next book is A Very Large Expanse of Sea by carahamelief. You guys know I read this book earlier this year, and this book was a so-so read. I think I gave it 3 stars. It wasn't like the best book I ever read, but it also wasn't the worst. It's definitely YA vibes. It's high school. I have this in a wrap-up video, probably a few wrap-ups back, I would say, and it was okay, but I'm just never gonna read it again. I know I'm not, so I don't need to keep it on my shelf. And like, this has been on my shelf for years, so it's time to move it along. Next is The Last Two Poets of the Sea. As you guys know, I read this year as well, and I gave this 2 stars. This was just not a book for me. This is a advanced reader copy, so I won't be able to sell this or anything like that, so I'm gonna end up putting this in a little library as well. Next up is My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. So I gave this book, when I read it, 4 stars, but if I'm being honest with myself, it was not a 4-star read. This was probably like a 3-star read. I know a lot of people hated this one. I didn't think it was that bad. There was definitely parts of it that were a little cringy and just unrealistic. But that's very Tessa Bailey, if I'm being honest. Usually I'll keep romances around if I really, really, really love them and there's a chance that I'll read them again. This one I won't, so it's gonna have to go. Next is September Doves by Emerson Hoyt. So this book actually was pretty good. I read this at the very beginning of the year. This is like a romance, but it's kind of like one of those hard-hitting, kind of like small town romances. And as much as I liked it, I didn't like it enough to continue on with a second book. So the second book is like twice this size. I think it's like 800 pages or something. And if I'm gonna dive into like an 800-page sequel, I have to have loved the first book. And as much as I liked it, I didn't love it. Like, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I need to read the second book like right now. And so I just don't think I'm ever gonna actually get to that second book. Plus, like, Ichi ate the cover. So I don't think that Lady's gonna take this one, so I'll probably just put this in like a little library. Okay, so these next 2 books were also books that I kept around for who knows why, weird attachment, I don't know, but they've been sitting on my shelf for years and I just don't think I'm gonna read them. They've been there for a long time. I've never felt like, ooh, I need to pick those up. There's always books that I wanna read before these, and I think there always will be. But if you think I should keep these, let me know, because I haven't heard a lot about them in years. Like, these came out quite a while ago, so people aren't really reading them anymore, so I just don't hear about them much anymore. But if you have read these, tell me if I should keep them. So this is Labyrinth Lost by Zoraida Cordova. And then I have the second one, which is Bruja Born. This is the second book after this one. I don't know. Let me know if you guys read these and if they're worth reading. If they are, I'll keep them, but I kind of wanted to talk about them on here just to ask, because like I said, I haven't heard anything about them in years. So the next one is The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. This is one I bought quite a few years ago. I think it's been like 3 or 4 years now I bought this, and recently I actually saw a review on it on YouTube and somebody said they didn't absolutely love this. They said it's very fade to black, which I don't hate fade to black, but there's a lot of times that I don't. I feel like that really kind of can ruin a book for me, especially when it's very focused heavily on the romance and it's an adult novel. It just takes a lot away from the couple, you know? I don't need it to be like really raunchy or anything, but like just to at least know what happened between them is helpful. I just feel about it, you know what I mean? And I haven't read it yet and it's been like 4 years, so I thought maybe it's time for it to go. Next up is Daughters of the Lake by Wendy Webb. As you guys know, I just finished this in October and I wasn't a huge fan. I think I ended up giving this 3 stars. I think maybe I was going to switch it to a 2, but I don't know if I did or not. But I didn't really love this book. There was a lot of problems with the end of this book that I absolutely did not like. It totally ruined the entire story for me. Like, this was one of the most slow-paced, long-winded books I've ever read. Like, it's one of those books too that isn't very long, but you're sitting there thinking like, when is this book gonna end? Like, I feel like it's just going on forever. And there was elements of it that I liked, but it just wasn't enough for me to like rave about it. And so I'm gonna get rid of it because it definitely doesn't need to stay. And then next up is Boyfriend Material. This is by Alexis Hall. So I got this a couple of years ago from my sister-in-law and I thought that maybe I would read it. I just don't know if I'm going to. It's just been sitting there for years. I have not thought about it at all. I have not even considered it really. I feel like maybe I should give it a try because maybe it's gonna be really cute. I'm not being pulled to it. And part of the reason I took this from her was because I kind of like to have books just to kind of feel out for a while. Maybe I'll bring a book into my house and I just get this really strong urge to read it, and then sometimes I bring books into my house and I don't, and they just kind of sit there. Like, you never really know how you're gonna react to a book. I think I'm gonna get rid of this one. I'm sure there's people out there that would want to read this much more than me, so it's gonna go. Next up is Fish in a Tree by Linda Mullally Hunt. I read this also earlier this year, and this was actually a pretty good book. There was elements of it that I didn't love. I think part of it was, like, she did great things with this book, you know, showing people that have dyslexia that they're not stupid, that they're actually very, very smart. They just have you know, strengths in other areas. Like there was a lot of really great things about this book, but there was also a lot of bullying that happened in this book to the main character that has dyslexia. And at times it was really hard to read because the bullying was like so constant at the beginning. And I feel like if you had dyslexia, like you'd almost feel like it's being said to you, even though by the end the story kind of like resolves and kind of goes full circle and like has that really nice arc. The beginning was a little hard to read, I'm not gonna lie. So that's kind of why I'm getting rid of it. I don't think Elena's gonna read this. I don't think Emery is probably gonna read this, and I just don't need to keep it around, but I'm glad I read it though. Next up is Heard It in a Love Song. So I read this book also earlier this year, and as great as it just wasn't my favorite romance ever. This was the most vanilla romance you could ever possibly read. This is perfect for people that are maybe going through a divorce and kind of want like that hope of maybe finding love again. But I think for the everyday reader, this didn't have like that really great, cute, passionate oomph that you need in a romance. This is very like everyday life. Like this is what would happen if somebody met somebody at their school after a divorce. Like this is exactly how it would happen, and it would be very, very, very anticlimactic. The cover is just darling. I love it. Next up is Quiet. This is by Susan Cain. So I read this ages ago, probably in like 2016 or something. I picked this up, and I think I read like the first, I don't know, like 100 pages of this, I would say. And I've read other books about introversion, and I almost like them a little bit better. I think that this just goes into far too much detail for my taste, for like a nonfiction. And if I do end up reading this in the future, which I could, maybe, I would much rather read this like via audio. Next up is The Spanish Love Deception. This is another one. I don't know why I keep it around. Like, I didn't actually love this book as much as I thought that I did. I've explained it before, what happened, I think, with this book and why I rated it high when I actually didn't even like it that much. Which was so strange, like how you can manipulate your own mind into thinking you like something because you're so desperate to like something. I was in, I think, a little bit of a reading slump at the time, and I wasn't reading anything good, like nothing. And it had been so long since I read a 5-star that I somehow manipulated myself into thinking this was good. But I know that the reading process wasn't actually that fun for me. I don't know. And I'm not a huge fan of Elena Armas in general. I read the second book in this series and I did not like it at all. So I don't know. I don't know why I've kept this around as long as I have, but I have for some reason, and it's time for it to go. But there's something like really, like this is a paperback, but it feels so nice. Like it's really heavy. It's kind of floppy, which is kind of nice. I mean, not super floppy, but it's just very like, it's a nice paperback. Maybe that's why I've kept it around. I don't know. That's all the books I am unhauling. I feel like I've made definitely some room on my shelf, which is great. Definitely more than there was before. And like I've said a million times, like I buy so many books secondhand. And so I'm not buying books brand new. Like all of these books that I'm donating are probably like either secondhand books or used off of Amazon. So that is it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know if I should keep any of these books or if you really, 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 really recommend that I read something. And if there is a book on here that you really think I should read, let me know why. Like why you think it would work like for my reading taste specifically, because you know, sometimes you just don't know what you're getting rid of. So anyways, that's it guys, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.